So the first thing that I want to do is make sure that you're aware of how to find an angle measure. Now, it may be that this angle or this diagram is given to you. It may be that you have to create it from a story problem. Okay? Regardless, you'll kind of use the whatever the information that's provided. And so let's say they gave you the following figure. And they ask you to find theta in terms of degrees and radians. All right, now, the other way that you might see this problem, again, it might maybe just that they give you this image and the information. It may be that they tell you you have a 12-foot ladder leaning against a house. It reaches 9 feet high or 9 feet up the house. At what angle does this ladder form with the ground? So this would be a diagram that demonstrates that exact relationship. So again, it might be something that they just provide for you. It might be something that you create based on a story problem. Okay, but regardless of how you approach this, what you first need to do is you need to figure out what trig ratio relates the pieces of information involved. So when you look at this, you have an unknown angle, you have a side opposite that, and you have a hypotenuse. So which trig ratio relates opposite and hypotenuse? Sine, right? So you can set up your trig ratio for that. So once you determine the trig ratio, you're then going to set up that ratio. Okay, so in doing that, you would say that the sine of theta is equal to opposite 9 over hypotenuse 12. And then what you'll do after you have this equation is you'll solve this trig equation. And the way that you solve the trig equation is you can find an angle measure by taking the inverse trig ratio that's provided. So the theta of this problem is calculated by taking the inverse sine of the ratio that was given as its sine ratio. And so it's just a matter of entering this in your calculator. So if we take the inverse sine, so green diamond y, of our ratio 9 divided by 12, put a decimal in there so we get our answer in decimal form. Okay, so I'm in radian mode, so I'm finding radians first. When I hit enter, I get theta is equal to 0.848, and that was radians. Okay, now at the same time, I could find the degrees by calculating or changing my mode into degree mode, and then just calculating the exact same thing. You've done in school? Yeah. Give me a second, and like if you have any other teachers you want to visit, come back in like 10 minutes. Okay. We'll see you there. All right. So the radian measure is 0.848. The degree measurement is 48.59 in degrees. So these would be your two values for that. Questions on the steps that I use for that? These are the steps that you will be using for your story problems as well. Okay. So go ahead and try this one on your own for me, please. Okay, so solve for theta both in degrees and radians. All right, so step one, which trig ratio relates these three pieces of information? You have an angle, an opposite side, and an adjacent side. Tangent. So we can set up our tangent ratio. Tan of theta is equal to opposite over adjacent. And so solving for this equation, we'll take the inverse tan of that ratio. And when we do that, green diamond T, our ratio 6 divided by 11. and enter. I'm in degree mode, so my first answer is in degrees, 28.6 degrees. And I can simply change the mode into radians. And hit enter, and I calculate the radians for this as well. 0.499 would be the equivalent measure in radians.